Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us here again today for episode number 835. Well, we are heading out to New Hampshire, and then we're going a little further east. We're going 70 miles out into the North Atlantic Ocean. We're going to be speaking with Oliver Foss, and he's going to be talking with us about his job doing commercial fishing as well as guiding some whale watching tours during high school and heading out into the ocean all year round to fish for cod by hand. It is very, very interesting. Really looking forward to telling you this tale, and we'll get it started for you right now. Joining me today is Oliver Foss, and he is coming to us from New Hampshire, Exeter, New Hampshire, and he's currently studying business at Great Bay Community College and was formerly at the, will explain to us, but formerly in the FFA at Exeter High School. And we're going to talk all about his supervised agricultural experience today. Oliver, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Hey, you bet. I'm thrilled to speak with somebody from New Hampshire. I've been to your state one time and really enjoyed my time there. And I didn't get to stay there very long, but thrilled to speak from somebody from that far northeast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's do this. I want to start off by just asking you just a few questions about you so our audience can get to know you. Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, first, I'm looking at where you live on the map. So you are very, very close to the coast in New Hampshire.
We are, yeah, just about 15 minutes from the ocean.
Okay. You know, I don't know if anyone's ever, maybe this is the case, but I'm looking at the coastline of New Hampshire. Does New Hampshire have the smallest coastline of any state with a coastline?
We do. I might be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure it's only 17 miles long.
Yeah, that is not very long. I'm looking at that, and actually I was surprised to see that, I don't know, my geography, I need to brush up on that because I was surprised to see that New Hampshire actually did touch the ocean. But, yeah, not a whole lot between Massachusetts and Maine. There's just a little sliver there for you guys.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to hear about what you've been doing. Now, let's talk about you for a second. So when you're at home, when you're not away at school, and I'm assuming you're home right now because of coronavirus?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. Everything got shut down. And actually, we're doing this interview at the end of April, but we'll be airing this in June, so hopefully we are closer back to normal by June. But when you're at home, are you living in town or on a farm or something kind of in between those two?
I'm living in Newmarket, New Hampshire, which is a pretty rural area.
Okay.
A little bit of farmlands, but I'm not living on one currently.
Okay. So Newmarket. So I've got that pulled up on the map too. So you're right next to, what do we call that? Is it a bay or?
Yeah, Great Bay. It's a pretty large brackish water bay.
Okay. And you can actually get out to the ocean from your place if you wanted to. It looks like the water all connects there.
Yeah, good.
Okay, cool. You got to forgive me for this. I'm so fascinated with other people, the way they live. I live in Idaho, and so we're landlocked and we're dry, and we can see forever, but there's very few trees. You know, all this type of stuff is so different out here than where you're from. I always like to know about where people are from. So how long have you been part of the FFA?
I started my junior year in high school, and I continued that through my senior year. So that was the last time I did anything related to that.
So just a couple years in the FFA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now explain to us how this works. So you went to Exeter High School, but your FFA chapter is through a different school. Is that correct?
Yes. So I forget exactly what they call it, but there's a joint school called the Seco School of Technology, and it takes in multiple different towns around the area and offers each school an opportunity for a select amount of students to participate in a lot of different career-focused classes, one of which is FFA related, which I took.
Okay. Now, when did you not transfer to this school or not start attending in this program till your junior year?
Yeah, it's only a 2-year class, unfortunately.
Okay. And what brought you into that program? Was there some sort of a placement test? Were you pushing to get in and apply? I mean, how did that all work?
There is an application process, not really a test, just kind of like a questionnaire of what interests you most about the class and why you want to join it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And why did you want to join it? Why did you want to go over to that program?
Originally, I wanted to become a fishing game warden, actually.
Okay. And so that's what took you over there, but since then you've shifted your focus?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. Currently, I'm not really interested in that field anymore, but I still am interested in the environmental field.
Uh-huh.
I just haven't narrowed it down 100% on what I want to do right now.
Okay, very good. Now, when you got over to that program and you were pursuing, a possible career as a conservation officer, fish and wildlife warden, what brought you into the FFA? Why did you join the FFA?
So the class itself is, what do you call it? Part of the FFA, I guess. So when you join the class, you're automatically enrolled in the FFA.
Okay. And so what class was that? Even if you don't remember the title, what did you do in the class?
We did a lot of horticulture, agriculture-based stuff, a lot of veterinary technology.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically a class that touched upon a lot of different things in a quick amount of time. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it's only 2 years, but it gave everybody a little bit of a taste what it's like.
Got it.
Try these all different things so they can narrow their careers down if they'd like.
Okay. And so you were pursuing this and you were pursuing your interests, and the people at the school said, well, this aligns with being in the FFA. So when you joined into that class, you were automatically enrolled into the FFA.
Right.
Now that's interesting. So you're automatically enrolled into this group. Did you start participating in the events like the career development events, that type of stuff through the FFA?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I connected more with the people that were part of the FFA and in this class than anywhere else in high school. So I jumped all in on this and just went to all the events that they hosted and all the leadership program stuff mm-hmm. and everything I could.
Well, that's great. So you found your people there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Now, who was your FFA advisor there? Or if you had more than one, you can name them all, but I'd love to acknowledge them.
And DeMarco.
Okay, well, thank you for mentioning her. And Oliver, I'm going to take a second just to acknowledge a couple of our great sponsors of this show. And everybody, of course, I want to bring up Lacrosse Footwear. You can find them at lacrossefootwear.com. They make absolutely fantastic neoprene-based rubber boots. They make hip waders. I don't know, Oliver, as we talk about your SAE, I bet you've been in some hip waders before, but we'll talk about that here in a second. But anything you need to stay warm, dry, and comfortable, especially on your feet, Lacrosse makes it. And I'll tell you what, they are a proud sponsor of the FFA. They annually sponsor 15 scholarships along with 100 jackets, is part of the Give the Gift of Blue program, and we are sure proud to have them as a sponsor of this show. Please check them out over at lacrossefootwear.com. And then, of course, Powder River Livestock Handling Equipment, everybody. Man, just such a fan of this company. They make just great squeeze chute, sweep tubs, livestock panels for your cattle, whatever you need to handle your cattle safely. Powder River makes it. Check them out at powderriver.com and let your local farm and ranch retailer know you'd like to see that Powder River green out in their sales yard so you can buy the finest in livestock handling equipment. Okay, Oliver, let's talk about your supervised agricultural experience. Tell me what you've been doing.
So I have been working in the fishing industry since I was 16 years old.
Okay.
I originally started off doing fishing and whale watching, working as a crew member, part of these boats, and slowly made my way up from working as a deckhand on a charter boats all through sophomore year, and I graduated up to commercial fishing. which I did all throughout senior year. And we go about 70 miles out catching all sorts of things like haddock, cod, halibut, whatever you name it. We were doing a lot of hand line jigging. So we would get our fishing lines and rod ready, rig it up with multiple jigs, and we'd set them down about 300, 400 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sustainable is the word I was looking for. Supposed to be the most sustainable way you can fish just about now.
Okay.
And compared to a lot of people who would do gill netting and a lot of dragging on the bottom.
Okay. So are you actually, when you do it that way, are you actually fishing with like a fishing rod?
Yes, we are.
So each individual crew member who is fishing has a rod, and you're actually out there with the rod trying to catch fish.
Right.
Oh, wow. I did not realize it was done that way. But this is done. The reason that the company you were working for does this is so that they can market their fish as sustainably caught. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep. And
Okay.
there was only about 5 of us on a 35-foot boat, which is pretty small for catching about 1,500 pounds of fish a day.
Wow.
All by hand. And a lot of people don't really do that anymore because when you weigh the expenses to how much you're actually catching, not very profitable, but it is the most sustainable, and that's kind of the whole memo that the business is putting out there.
Well, you know, it's interesting. There's all sorts of different ways to market your product, and even though a cod is a cod, I suppose the way you're catching it, if people value the way you're catching it, generally you could charge more because it's more expensive to catch them that way. Do you have any idea? Is that what the company that you're working for did? Do they charge more for the same fish because of the way that you caught them?
We did, yes. And another thing that made it a little bit more expensive on the buyer's end, I guess, is that it's 100% traceable. So we would catch the fish. We personally would bring it up to our cutting facility, and we would drive that about an hour north, fillet the fish, bag it, and then within a 24-hour turnaround period, we would drive the fish down to a farmer's market and sell it ourselves. So you're actually buying the fish from the person that caught it either the day before or within the past few days.
Yeah. You know, that's interesting. There's a whole movement in agriculture, like where I'm at in a landlocked state, which is very similar. People like to purchase their livestock direct from the person who raised it. And it sounds like it's very similar what you're doing there in the fishing industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Now, you were talking about how many pounds of fish did you say each person on the boat was catching?
It could be in total anywhere from 500 on a slow day up to 1,500 pounds on a good day.
Okay. And about how many fish? How many fish per person would that be?
I don't think I've ever counted personally.
Okay.
Probably a few hundred. Easy.
So a few hundred per person per day?
Yeah, I would say.
Wow, that's getting busy. You're reeling in a lot of fish.
Yeah, we reel in about 4 fish every drop, and we do that for, I want to say, about 8-9 hours.
Wow. And do you have some sort of an assist to help you reel them in, or are you doing it all just based on your own muscle power?
Just on your own muscle power.
Oh, man, that's got to get tiring.
It does, but it's fun, so it pays off.
Yeah, I'll say. Now, when you've got 3 or 4 cod on one line, are they fighting pretty hard, or do you just have such a heavy line that it's not much of a fight?
I mean, you definitely feel them fighting, and the bigger the fish, the harder it is to reel in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you get them right up to the boat, you have somebody netting them for you, or are you able to just lift them in?
You're usually able to swing them over the edge of the boat. Sometimes you have a gaff, which is just a hook on a stick, basically, and you just kind of yank them over the boat so they don't pull the hook on you.
And so is everybody on the boat fishing, or do you need some people who are not fishing that can run that gaff and they can do other things to when it gets really, when it's getting really good and everybody's bringing in fish?
Yeah. We usually have everybody fishing at the same time. And when somebody gets their fish up to the boat or needs help, you quickly just put your rod down, help them up.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good system. Everybody gets used to it pretty quickly and makes things go pretty quick.
And are you stationary or are you moving as you're fishing?
Typically stationary. I mean, we only have about 1.5 feet, 2 feet on either side of us before you bump into somebody else. So we're usually just 1 foot over the edge of the boat in the water and the other foot in the boat, just straddle on the side. Actually,
what I'm asking you is I should have said this better. Is the boat stationary or is the boat moving as you're fishing?
Oh, sorry. Usually we do a drift, so the boat's not anchored. It's just going.
Okay. But it's not necessarily motoring. It's just kind of in the current?
Right. Yeah, the boat's normally shut off, and we're just drifting along.
Man, you must have some good sea legs. I've done that one time, and when the boat was moving, I was just fine. But when we stopped to bottom fish we were fishing for cod and for sea bass, this is in the Pacific, I got so sick. I got sick 3 times, and I finally just had to give up. But as soon as they started the boat and we started with some forward progress, I was fine. I felt just like I had never been seasick.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely got to get used to it, especially when the fog sets in.
Oh, man.
So makes things rough sometimes.
Yeah, when the fog sets in, you can't see the horizon or anything, right?
Mm-hmm. You can't see the horizon, and the diesel fumes just kind of go right in the cab.
Oh, right.
Doesn't make things...
Oh, man. Well, that's interesting. So what seasons are you fishing in? When do you start and when does the season end for you? When do you stop going out?
So when I did the charters, we would go anywhere from April to October, which is when most people want to go fishing, when the weather's somewhat nice and the ice isn't on the side of the boat. But when I was in the commercial fishing, we'd go all year long, throughout the winter, even when it's snowing out. You just kind of got to tough it out.
Yeah, I guess so. What about high seas and dangerous weather? Do they just not go out on those days because they can kind of forecast that?
Right, yeah. They definitely put the employees' safety first, and it didn't go out in any risky weather, which I was pretty fortunate for.
Sure. Wow, really interesting. So how did you get started doing this? What inspired you to get a job on a fishing or a whale watching boat in the first place?
I always loved being in nature, and I always loved fishing growing up, like a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew some people who were fishing on the coast, so I kind of just went up to them and asked if they needed any help, and luckily they did and took me on.
Wow, that is great. And so it goes year round, depending on the weather. Were you doing this during high school, like on the weekends?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So during the school week, I'd go on the weekends, and once summer opened up, I was just going full time.
Mm-hmm. And you said you go out about 70 miles. When you get out that far, I'm assuming you cannot see land.
Correct. Yeah.
So you're just out there, nothing but water as far as the eye can see.
Yeah, it's definitely something else. It's pretty cool though, seeing all the sea life out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating to me. It's so different than anything that I know, and it's really fascinating. And then you said you did whale watching tours as well. What kind of whales do you see over in the North Atlantic there?
In the summer, you'll see a lot of minke whales, humpback whales. I'm forgetting the other name of them. That was the majority, though.
Okay. And what was your success rate like when you took a group out? Did you always find whales, or were there times where they got skunked?
Typically, we'd find whales. There was about 5 or 6 other boats in the area that would go out, and we'd all communicate with each other, which is a pretty good system.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd spot them out and help each other out.
Okay. Yeah, that is a good system. That way everybody gets to please their customers and everybody gets to see that wildlife.
Yeah, so you'd pretty much see one every time he went out.
That is awesome. Well, I know that along the way, you had some proficiency awards from what you were doing, correct?
I do, yes.
Yeah, tell me about those. What kind of awards did you receive?
So I got my Ag Business Proficiency Award for doing the commercial fishing boat.
Okay.
And I also got a wildlife proficiency for working with an animal rehab during my sophomore through my senior year in high school.
Okay. And were both of those proficiency awards at the state level?
Yeah, they were.
Okay, so for New Hampshire, that's great. Tell me about the animal rehab. What did you do there?
So this was during the time where I wanted to be a conservation officer.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually walked up to my local conservation officer and asked them, what's the best thing I could do? What looks really good on a resume if I wanted to join the crew eventually. And they just gave me the number of one of the rehabbers up in central New Hampshire. And I started working for them. They trained me about how to restrain animals, capture them, do a little bit of first aid on them.
Mm-hmm.
So I would work from the Seacoast up to Lake Winnipesaukee, which is right about in the center of New Hampshire.
Okay.
And my job was to kind of be on call. And whenever I got a phone call, I would go to these animals, assess the situation, contact, whoever called in the animal, try to find it, capture it, see what was wrong with it, and usually end up bringing it back to the rehab so it didn't somehow escape before I got there. And the owner and I would work, and I would learn a lot about the animals and how to do some first aid and work with the vet.
And what kind of animals were we talking about? Like what species?
She would do anything except for deer, bear, and I believe bobcats. But I mostly worked with raptors.
Okay.
A lot of hawks and owls.
Wow, fascinating stuff. You've really done some interesting things. I know you're sitting here thinking, as we're talking, this is probably all very normal to you. But I'm gonna go ahead and say 98% of my listeners are listening to stuff that they've never done. So many people living in the middle of the country and they're farming and they're raising livestock and they're nowhere near a coastline, and you're going out 70 miles into the North Atlantic Ocean and you're catching all these fish, and you're going and you're rescuing and doing first aid on hawks in the Northeast. It's pretty fascinating stuff, Oliver. I don't know if you're aware of that, but really interesting stuff here.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to have the opportunities that I've had.
That is great. Well, so now you're at Great Bay Community College and you are studying business. So tell me what you have in mind with that degree or with that area of study.
I was thinking when I got into it, I really don't want to have a lot of student loans. So I tried to find a community college that was relatively cheap. So I decided to settle on Great Bay Community College.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured that with my business degree, even though I don't have a specific thing that I'm going for right now, I just kind of have a general idea of or direction of which way I want to go with my career.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a business degree is pretty safe. You can kind of take that anywhere. If I wanted to, I could use it to help myself start a business in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's a pretty solid thing to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's so much you can do with that.
Yes.
Yeah, good for you. Well, that is very exciting. And are you planning on staying in the Northeast in New Hampshire, or are you going to go and see the world a little bit for a while?
I don't know. I kind of want to go see the world and move out west. But I have no idea where things are going to take me.
Sure. Well, not to make a bad fishing or ocean joke, but the world is your oyster at this moment. You can go wherever you want. That is great.
That's true.
Well, Oliver, before we wrap it up, I would love to get your perspective for other FFA students. I mean, your entry into the FFA is really unique compared to most of the students that I speak with, in that you went into a specialty program and you were in the FFA for only 2 years, and you kind of came into the FFA because one of the classes you took automatically placed you in the FFA, but then you discovered the people who were in that organization and all the different activities that you enjoyed. What would you say to a student who's trying to decide whether or not the FFA is right for them?
I guess I would just kind of look at what kind of career opportunities that you might be able to take your education that you learned from your FFA class. No matter if you're a freshman or a junior going into it. But if it seems like something that you might be interested in, definitely take advantage of it, because it's definitely the best part of my grade school that I had. And I met a lot of great people in it, had a lot of great memories and experiences. I wish I could do it again. It was a lot of fun.
That's great. Well, Oliver, we will go out on that note, but really enjoyed hearing all about this. I'm visualizing you steaming out into the ocean as we talk. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing this with us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody. Thank you to Oliver Foss for sharing that great story with us. And as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.